Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I will be ranking the major and most common modifications on tanks in War Thunder, all the way from D rank up through S rank. My aim with this video is to hopefully be able to advise people, especially newer players, which modifications are the ones you should be going for first, and which ones maybe you should save for last when you're looking to grind through and possibly even spade a vehicle. Now that said, again, these are the general modifications. Some of these, like right here where it says DM23, are just in general ammo modifications, whereas of course you have things like laser rangefinder and rangefinder, which are a little bit more specific, but both are common enough to be in this video, whereas things like camo nets are only like on 3 or 4 vehicles and don't really have a place in this video. Now that said, let's get into it and start off with adjustment of fire. This is more or less going to be alphabetical, so again, adjustment of fire. This is where pretty much it more or less zooms in or zeroes in rather your shot, so it makes the spread much better. So it is a very nice modification, especially if you're looking on longer range. It's a little bit difficult to say. This is typically one of my go-to mods when I'm first going through the modification tree on a tank, so I'll go ahead and put that in the A rank. Occasionally some modifications will supersede this, but again, in terms of importance and what you should really be going for, this is one of those ones that you go through and you pick up on your first way through a mod tree. Next up, we have airstrike. Now this one is relegated to basically just light tanks, but it is a very important one for light tanks because this pretty much makes it so that with each vehicle that you scout and I believe is destroyed, it makes it so that spawn points for a CAS vehicle, whether it's an aircraft or a helicopter, it goes down by about 10%. So a tremendously useful thing insofar as light tanks are concerned, especially if you are the scouting type. I kind of want to put it in A, kind of want to put it in S rank. I'll probably put it in S rank. It has a lot of value. Next up, again, we have ammunition. And just so you guys know, I probably will be making some sort of an ammo guide in the future. Either that or a tier list with all different ammo types, just in general, like APCBC, APFSDS, APDS, so on and so forth. But this just means ammunition in general. And for the most part, I mean, of course, some vehicles don't really have great ammo options that you can unlock, but for the most part, you do get really good ammo options, especially at top tier when you're going from Heat FS to APFSDS, or like when you have solid shot and you want the M61 shell for the 75mm Sherman. Easy S class. This is easily one of the most important mods on any vehicle, regardless of the type of ammunition it will use. Next, we have artillery support. This is typically going to be on the 4th line, typically of modifications, and you can occasionally get kills from it. A lot of the time, if you aim it well enough, you will get at least some sort of damage on the enemy. It is a little bit spotty. Sometimes it can, you know what? It's really tough, right? Like, this is pretty much like a free kill system in a way. You know what? I'm going to put this in S class. Maybe S minus, but it's S class, I would say. Next, we have brakes. This is, at least for me, always. I mean, I think it's literally been every single time I've ever spaded a vehicle, this is the last modification I unlock. D rank, all it does is just make your braking better. It has a bit more importance on non-stabilized vehicles, but still, not all that big of a deal. Next up, we have the crew replenishment modification. This is pretty much where you can script a local farmer boy who's only ever used a tractor to farm for corn or whatever local agriculture there is, and conscript him to be the commander for your highly advanced tank. So that said, this is a very important one. It's not always usable because, of course, if you're playing realistic, you not only have to be on a base, but you also have to have a crew member that's dead. I mean, essentially, they say it's knocked out, but they're dead. So I will put this in the A rank. This can be a lifesaver, but it just doesn't really, like, you're not going to have it all the time where it's like ammo or the artillery or whatever the case may be. These are all the time. This is only in certain scenarios, but in those scenarios, extremely important. Next, we have the elevation mechanism, and this pretty much kind of adjusts it so that your aim or your ammo doesn't go up or down. It doesn't have as much of a vertical spread, and it also makes it so that you can aim your cannon up and down more quickly. So, I mean, it's very important, don't get me wrong, but it's not like critical. You know, this is one of those ones that after I'm done getting all my most important modifications, this is typically one of the ones I get like almost immediately after I'm done with those. Next we have engine, and this is probably the big kahuna of the mobility modifications. This is always one of the top ones I get. It doesn't always matter on some, you know what, maybe I should put, it depends. I mean, like, you know, I'm gonna put it in A rank because mobility, or S rank rather, mobility always helps no matter what. Even if you're using the mouse, having the engine modification will still help. So I'm putting that in S rank. Next up, we have filters. This is still very important. Do I want to put that in A rank, B rank? It's pretty much you get about half the power that you will with the engine upgrade. So I'm going to put that in B rank. Extremely important. Believe it or not, this is one of the ones I typically get on my first way down the mod trees, but it's also not like incredibly important where like if you don't have it, you're not going to die. The engine is a much more important modification because essentially the engine is going to be the equivalent of the filters and transmission. Now, next up, we have improved FPE. I feel like before they had it like where you had to get FPE in general, where it was either all or nothing, this would be a much more important thing. Right now, I think some people are actually skipping it on the first way down because all vehicles, if I'm not mistaken, start off with 1 charge of FPE, fire equipment, or fire prevention equipment. So I'm going to put that in a B rank. It's still one of those ones that because it is a cheaper to unlock modification, I pretty much always get on the first way down. But, I don't know. It's not like incredibly important because you get at least 1 free use of it. Next up, we have horizontal turret drive, and this is another one. Man, it is extremely important. It's 18%, if I'm not mistaken, on realistic, and I think 38% in arcade. So this can be tremendous for improving the, essentially like the combat mobility of a vehicle. I'll put that in A rank. It is very important. There are some modifications that do supersede this, but it is still a very important thing. Next, we have improved optics. I'll probably put this in C rank. I mean, a lot of people, especially scout players, are going to hate me for this, but it does improve your crew's visual range by 30%, but for the most part, I really, like, there's not really so many parts in this game, so many maps in this game where it's like, you're not going to be able to see somebody because you don't have improved optics. So it's not a bad thing, and sometimes I will even get it on the first way down on the tech tree if there's nothing that kind of supersedes this, but it's probably more close to a B- than a C, but let's put it in C for now. Next, we have laser rangefinder. Easy S-class. This is one of the best modifications in War Thunder. You just look at your enemy, let's say he's 800 meters away, you press the laser rangefinder button, and not only does it tell you exactly how far they are within about a second, but it also adjusts your cannon to shoot that far away. Incredibly important, any day of the week. S-class. Next up, we have night vision. This used to be, I think, more important. Then they took away night vision. Now they're reworking night battles, and so because I think at this point night battles are 10.0 BR plus, pretty much every tank at 10.0 BR is going to be thermal equipped. Not all, of course. There are some Russian tanks that don't have thermals, but for the most part they will be. And so I'll put this in C rank. It's not really as important right now. When you need it, it's still very nice, but there are very few night matches at this point, and once you actually have the capability to get into night match, you'll probably have thermals anyways. Next, we have improved parts. It's kind of the same thing with the FPE, except it's still really important. So because they're so cheap, and also because they're a top tier, like literally the first line of modifications unlock, I'm gonna put this in S-class, S rank, any day of the week. Improved parts are a savior on the battlefield. Next up, we have rangefinder. Kind of want to put this in B rank, kind of want to put it in C rank. It's important, you know, but there are not a ton of vehicles that have it. Things like the King Tiger 10.5, Panther 2 have it. I think that there are some things like some M48s that have it, if I'm not mistaken, and some other vehicles as well. It's a good thing, really more useful if you're going to be sniping, you know. I'm going to put that in B rank. Of course, like the laser rangefinder is good for all ranges. This, because it is a little bit slower than the laser rangefinder, plus it doesn't have the auto adjustment feature for the cannon, I'll put it in B rank. I think it's still really useful for what it is, especially for those snipers. Like again, the King Tiger 10.5, but it's not on enough vehicles, and it's not really this all-encompassing thing. It just pretty much makes range finding a bit more accurate and a bit quicker. So it's still really nice, but not incredibly useful. Next, we have Scout UAV. This is something a lot of people use. I don't use it because I'm more of an offensive player rather than like a scouting player, like aerial scouting. I will scout the heck out of enemies with my binoculars, but when it comes to Scout UAV, it's just not my thing. But this provides so much usable intelligence, actionable intelligence on the battlefield that it's so important. The only reason why it's probably not S-Class is because I don't think that they have a scoring system up yet for them. Like, you're not going to get many, if any, assists when using this, kind of like you would with like a regular scout, but it is still incredibly important any day of the week. Smoke grenades, yes, S-Class, any day. Very, very important. This is always going to be one of those ones that on the first way down on the tank, I get the smoke grenade. Extremely important for survivability, for tricking players out. A lot of the time, what I'll do is if there's a player maybe like behind a building that's right next to me, I'll shoot off a smoke grenade, back up a little bit, go around the building and shoot them because they expect me to go one way, but I go the other, and it's just a whole lot of fun. Smoke grenades can be used both offensively, defensively. Excellent modification any day, S rank. Smoke shells, on the other hand, they're not as useful. I want to put them in B rank. I feel like it depends, right? Like if your tank does not have smoke grenades, these are probably a B or an A. If your tank does have smoke grenades and they're actually pretty good, or they're aligned pretty well, like you fire them in a decent enough pattern on your tank, then this is not as important. I'm just gonna put this in C rank. It's probably a C+. It's pretty good, but not insanely important. Next, we have suspension, and some people might put this in D rank. I feel like it's better than that. I'll probably put it in C rank, but this is definitely one of the last modifications I unlock, simply because it's just not insanely important. It's not like this modification that you absolutely need, and its importance gets reduced once you have stabilized vehicles. Pretty much the whole point of suspension is to make the ride softer. So if you have something with an already soft ride like the Panther, you can actually fire on the move with that with some accuracy. I've killed IS tanks with the Panther tanks from like I think over a kilometer away while on the move. In realistic, no less. So it is possible, and suspension does help, and also makes it so that the bumps don't really affect your ride as much. So in theory, it does help your mobility and your speed gain over rough terrain by a decent amount. But again, it's just one of those things. The engine is more important. Filters are more important. You know, it's kind of a second tier mobility upgrade. Very important for some things, but again, it's not crazy good. Next up, we have thermals. Any day of the week, this is S tier. Like, this lights up the enemy. It is just night and day, and especially if you are like looking at a helicopter, for example. If you don't see anything off in the barren sky like 5 kilometers away when you don't have your thermals on, swap on your thermals, you will see them. Easy, easy, easy S-Class. This is probably, along with the laser rangefinder and ammo, these are going to be your 3 best modifications to unlock. Next, we have the track upgrade. I would put this in D. I mean, you know what? Should I give this to B rank? I'm going to put that in B rank. So tracks, you might kind of slam them, but how many times do you get tracked and then because of that you're dead? This basically gives yourself more track health, if you will, HP, and also makes it so that, for example, you can turn more easily. You have better traction. It's just a kind of like a lot of different things that it helps in a small way, but it's still a really nice thing. Typically, I do not get this on the first go-round going down the modifications, but it's still a pretty important thing to get. And then finally, of course, we have transmission. This goes right there with filters. I think it's probably a little bit better than filters because it's not just a straight horsepower upgrade, but it does also help with shifting, and shifting gets done quicker. So, you know, in theory, along with horsepower, you get a little bit more as well. So you might even be able to say this is like a B+ upgrade, but I'm not going to say it's like incredibly good. But again, transmission plus filters pretty much going to be the same amount of horsepower that you get with the engine, and more or less about the same amount of mobility as well. But that being said, this is pretty much all of the major modifications. I know, again, there are some things like Ostketten that you could put in here. I'd probably put that in like C rank. And then you have things like Camo Net that you could put in here as well, but those things are used by so few vehicles. Maybe Ostketten a little bit more, but it's still, again, a very specific thing where it's only used by specific specific tanks on a specific tech tree, whereas pretty much all of these are used by nations, right? Different tanks in different nations. So that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I want to know what your top modifications are. I actually remember I ran a poll a few months ago where people said laser rangefinder is going to be the first thing they get, or was it APF SDS? But they pretty much said exactly what I'm saying here. The ammo, thermals, and laser rangefinder are like the 3 most important things to get at top tier. And yeah, like, again, these are my top 3, and easily brakes are the bottom tier of the bottom tier. Like, these are like D-. They don't really matter all too much. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But either way, thanks again. If you don't mind, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and also consider checking out my other tiers, because I do have tier lists for other things as well, including squadron vehicles, the most fun ranks to play, things like that. But thanks again. I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.